humans who... Your species is always suffering and dying.
Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing really great. Okay, I have some very good facts for Star Trek Next Generation, the episode Hide and Q from Season 1. Right, there is no Deanna Troi in this episode. As in the story, they actually explained that she had to take a shuttle to go home for some reason. But the real reason that she got written out is because Marina Sirtis actually had an infestation of termites in the bun on her hair because the producers weren't letting her do anything with it. She had to keep the bun at all times, and it was getting increasingly dirty, full of grease, and now bugs were infiltrating it. So she was actually ordered home to deal with the termites, but on the proviso that she come back ASAP for the next episode and that it look exactly the same.
May I please give happiness to my friends?
During this episode, when Q appears and Worf sees him, Worf quickly runs. He gets out his phaser and he jumps over the unit on the bridge. You know, that sort of guardrail thing that goes behind the captain. He jumps over it, which looks very good. It's a lovely stunt there by Michael Dorn. But on the first take, Michael Dorn actually tripped. His left ankle touched the unit and he tripped, landing right on his face. And the impact was so great that actually his left eye came out of its socket. This was revealed by one of the actors in an important interview that I read recently. Apparently it was horrific. Some of the actors were looking down at him as his eyeball was rolling around. And luckily they do have a nurse on hand in the studio, so she ran over and helped to pop it back in. And he's so tough, actually. Michael Dorn is so tough that he just said, no, I'm fine. Let's just carry on with the episode. So that was that, and they carried on from there. This episode is the second episode to show the character Q, the possibly deadly, omnipotent lifeform being from outer space. But the original reason that he was called Q when he was originally wrote, that it was going to be short for the name Cutie. The reason for this is that Gene Roddenberry wanted a character who had a bit of a soppy name, but was anything but soppy and was actually really tough and deadly. So his original name was Cutie, but they simply shortened it to Q. Now during this episode, during the scene, you might have noticed this, there's at one point when Q actually calls Captain Picard directly Gurney Halleck, which was, of course, his role, Patrick Stewart's role in the 1984 release of Dune, David Lynch's Dune. He was called Gurney Halleck in that. So that's a little callback to that when, in this episode, Q calls Captain Picard Gurney Halleck. And it's absolutely true, he does look exactly like him. When the crew is beamed away, it is actually a perfect opportunity for Picard to be all by himself on the bridge and on the ship. That's because he can catch up with some reading, he could take some strolls without anybody interrupting him, or he could even admire his floating fish that he keeps in that tank in his room. Right, Q in this episode. Q, in the original cut of this episode, and they actually filmed a couple of the scenes with Q wearing bright red lipstick, because once again they thought that a more of a somber, softer looking Q might be more of a strange threat for the crew. But unfortunately, after watching the early cut of the episode, they decided that Q wearing red lipstick was a bad idea, so they refilmed those scenes. But that's what could have been. We could have had a lovely Q wearing red lipstick. If you've had a look at the comm badges during this episode, especially when they're down on the strange planet, have a close look at Riker and Geordie's, etc's comm badges. You'll see that actually they look extra cheap. They're kind of thicker and look more plasticky. The reason being is that they'd recently had a studio tour, and some tourists had come through the studio, and one of them had actually stolen the genuine comm badges. And the only things that they could use for this episode was toy versions from the Paramount gift shop. So, as you can imagine, one of the producers quickly ran over to the toy shop, grabbed a handful of I'm not sure if he had to pay, grabbed a handful of the toy versions of the comm badges and quickly ran them back to the set so they could wrap up the episode. Now, also, when they're down on a strange planet, Riker says to Q that, "This isn't part of our future. referring to the what's happening on the planet. And Q says, yes, that's true, something along those lines. But how would Riker know that it wasn't part of their future? I'm sure that Riker knows something of the past. Riker knows about what's happened during his lifetime, of course, but how would he know about the future unless he was A, a magical visionary, B, a powerful alien, or C, a future expert, of which I'm not actually sure that that's such a thing. So that's a bit of an odd one for me. Now, actor John DeQuincy, who plays the character of Q in this episode, actually won an Oscar, which was Star Trek Next Generation's only Oscar, for the look of his eyes. Because if you look closely at his eyes, the acting that goes on there really is tremendous. He focuses them so well, he looks from left to right so realistically, so he actually won more of a focused acting Oscar for the movement of his eyes. So well done John DeQuincy, and well done Star Trek for that. Now, Q transports most of the main crew down to the planet for a challenge, as we all know, because we've seen that. Now, one of the problems, though, is that he does bring down Riker, he brings down Geordi, he brings down Worf, he brings down Tasha, but he doesn't bring down Chief O'Brien. Now, I think that the truth behind this is that Q must realise that he knows that Chief O'Brien would outwit him at every step, because Chief O'Brien really is a tactician and a true tough nut, and I think that Q was actually fearful of Chief O'Brien. Also, during this episode, in the scene where Tasha Yar is on the bridge crying, what happened is the actress was very good at putting on tears. It's actually real tears. All she does is she puts herself in a frame of mind whereby she remembers her horrible performance in the movie Pet Sematary, and it brings her to tears every time. So this isn't the first time that happened, and it isn't the last time, as you'll see in the next episode where she cries even more. But during this episode, she cries on a bridge, and it is realistic because she's thinking back to her time in the film Pet Sematary. Okay, thanks for listening to my facts. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to hit the like button and the subscribe button and all that stuff that everybody usually says, but you don't have to. I'm not really that bothered. Thanks very much, and I hope to see you next time. All the best, guys. Bye.